one-stop shop for wrestling talk. We're talking champs v contenders, rookies v vets, and shoots v works. I am your host, the Triple Crown Champ. Let's get into it. Welcome back. The champ is here, and today we're talking about NXT Battleground. This was a battleground I really enjoyed, I must say. NXT shows have always been something I enjoy sitting down to watch. So this battleground was something reminiscent of old, actually. The old black and gold era. It kind of felt like that in this show. So we start at the top of the show with Sol Ruka versus Kelani Jordan. Now, Kelani Jordan is a performer I don't necessarily all that care for, whereas Sol Ruka is a performer I very much care for. I must say the match was absolutely brilliant. Kelani Jordan showed me something more than I've seen from her before, and I very much enjoyed that for her. However, what is becoming clear in every match with Sol Ruka is how much she stands out so much more from the competition. The two do work extremely well together, and I think that is a rivalry for the future that they should probably carry on, not just through NXT, but through the main roster. I think it has legs even in the women's championship category on the NXT. And I tell you why I say that. I say that because I believe that Sol Ruka is your next face NXT women's champion. I do believe that. I believe, obviously, that Stephanie Vaquero at some point will have to drop that title. And when she does drop that title, I think she will drop it to a heel. At that point, I think the next person to pick up the title after that will be Sol Ruka. There is also a possibility of face-face. Sol Ruka is moving so fast up the card. So if Stephanie Vaquero holds on to the title for a long period of time on the NXT brand, then it's very possible that the next person to pick it up will be Sol Ruka, and it will be a face versus face match. But to me, it would make sense to in place a heel first and then have Sol Ruka win it from a heel, because that will probably boost her a little bit more. As far as rubbing goes, I think that will probably be a little bit better. I think that would require someone turning heel, though, because the biggest person in that division, I think, would probably be Fallon Henley as far as heel. So far, that's the way I see it. Although we'll touch on that as far as Stephanie Vaquero goes and her next competitor, who is not, in fact, Fallon Henley, by the looks of it. Anyway, let's talk about the match. Yeah, the match was absolutely brilliant. I was really impressed with Kelani Jordan. As I said, I saw something from her I'd never seen before. So a lot more impressed, and I wouldn't say I'm a fan, but I'm a lot closer to that than I was before. As for Sol Ruka, always been a fan ever since I saw her. The Soul Snatcher is probably one of the most amazing moves I've ever seen anywhere, male or female. So well crafted, so well thought out. And I must say, it was probably the best Soul Snatcher I've ever seen to culminate that match. She obviously won. Sol Ruka obviously won that match, but it was the best Soul Snatcher I've ever seen. The distance that she had to reverse and hit it was nothing short of phenomenal. Also, I think it might be time for Kelani Jordan to go heel. I don't think there's any place for her in a sweet, lovely girl act anymore. She's obviously made a turn recently that's made her a little bit more physical in her matches, and that has been spoken about. And I think that might be somewhat a lead to a heel turn. I think that's what she needs. We've already seen her as a face. We know that she can do that. Let's see her as a heel. I think that will garner a lot more respect for her. So let's move on to the Cullen. That's Jensen, Nico Vat, and Sean Spears with Izzy Dame. I quite like the Cullen. I think they're quite interesting, and I think we need to watch the space and see what happens with them. I think the Culling winning the match would be the understandable direction to go. As far as building a faction on NXT brand, obviously I spoken no end about the destruction of Metaphor, which I do not like. That is horrible. You got rid of Metaphor. I don't understand why. Okay, I understand why. But in any case, it was versus Hank and Tank and Briggs. Now, I often wondered if Inamura leaving for Japan in that storyline with Josh Briggs was true. It seemed to me that he was clearly a Japanese wrestler who was now signed to NXT, no longer to the Noah production in Japan. So the fact that he was off TV for a little while, I was sure that he was going to come back. It seems clear that that is, in fact, the actual case. There's an interesting story building between them there. Um, Small pond, but it's an interesting story nonetheless, and would love to see how that progresses itself. Hank and Tank also are, they're just great storytellers, I think. A lot of that was done well, I think, during this NXT uh, PLE. It was done very well, the storytelling. I think so. So it was a very well wrestled match. I thought I saw a spot where Jensen was on the top rope and Sean Spears did a shoot straight through the middle rope by the turnbuckles, and it was clean. And I thought that was impressive. It seemed like a very small thing, but it was impressive. He managed to do that with a man on the top rope and not disturb the man on the top rope by hitting his legs on the top or the bottom rope or shaking anything. It was such a clean shoot, suicide dive through the ropes. I thought that was impressive and excellent wrestling, honestly. So yeah, the whole match was wrestled very well and a story was told very well. I think this match had a lot of people that we will see in the future as great stars. So as far as that goes, it was a perfect showing. Let's talk about the Tony D'Angelo match. Now, something I've thought about considerably. I haven't said it before, but Tony D'Angelo, although I'm not so much with the gangster gimmick, I will say that he is a performer, he's a great performer. Now, the WWE clearly have a lot of confidence and stock in this man because of just the production value when he comes to the ring. The more pyro, the bigger the star kind of thing. And some cases, especially in NXT, that goes for the production value behind the entrance. Now, the entrance almost sounds like it was made by the exact part of the music department that made Roman Reigns' music. It's so grandiose and it's larger than life when he comes to the ring. That music, the timing of the drop, and I think you'd have to listen to the music again to hear what I understand and how that differentiates from the first time you saw him. It's an evolution of that same music. I would say the same thing has been done to Alexa Bliss music. The drop and the timing, it's the exact same music, but the changing and taking out certain instruments at certain time gives it such a grandiose feel. And I think they've done that with Tony D'Angelo. So I feel like this is a superstar that they really have a lot of stock in. I don't know if he'll ever hold the NXT championship, but I'm sure he'll hold major titles on the Raw SmackDown brand. I'm fairly sure of that because you can see the stock and the production value that is put into him. As far as the match goes, I thought the ending of the match was logical. I think Stax is a very good wrestler, and we have to validate this heel turn to a certain extent because there's a lot more meat on the bones as far as telling a story, as well as truly seeing what Stax can do. I'm hoping at some point he changes his character a little bit. The name is fine, but maybe he differentiates away from this Sicilian mafia character. Maybe that's just me because I don't necessarily like the whole Sicilian mafia angle. I'm not saying it doesn't work. It clearly works. I'm just not a fan. I'm not saying it should go away because, again, it clearly works. So at least one of them should have it, but maybe differentiate a little bit between Stax and the Don. Maybe his gimmick changes somewhat. Um, Sorry, aside from that, it was a very well wrestled match. Enjoyed it thoroughly. And yeah, I thought the ending was logical. So, the Jordan Grace and Stephanie Vaquer match. I can't say too much about it. Two performers that I absolutely love, two great performers. Logical ending. I always thought it would end that way. Very well wrestled match. It would be interesting to see where Jordan Grace goes from here. It'd be very interesting to see where Jordan Grace goes from here. Um, I think it will be a while before she competes again for those titles. I would say a logical step it would be tag titles for the ladies, but I haven't seen women's tag titles for a while. Chance and Carter were the last NXT Women's Tag Champions, if I'm not mistaken, if they even were. I can't even remember now if the division has female tag wrestlers, but what would be logical would be her to get with somebody else. Of course they do. Total Fatal Attraction were tag team champions. Where are the tag titles for women? What's going on with that? I haven't seen any matches in that concern for quite some time. That's interesting. But I would have said the logical step would be Jordan Grace to get with somebody else and become tag team champions. I think it would be too early for her to go heel. So I mean, yeah, not too much that can be said about that. So let's talk about the Obafemi match versus Miles Bourne. Miles Bourne had a great showing. He really did. Um, but he clearly needs some work for a main event picture, but he had an absolutely phenomenal showing. So as we thought, Oba looked like he was a little bit out of gas towards the end of the match. I must say, so he doesn't look like he has the greatest gas tank in that respects. Although he finished the match perfectly fine. So do it that way, maybe what you will. Maybe he was just simply tired. Um, but I thought that the two had a very good match. Show of respect at the end of the match. There was talk of them coming into the performance center at the same time. So maybe they've had, out of kayfabe, they had somewhat of a relationship before. So that made it easier for them to wrestle the match. But yeah, very good showing by Miles Bourne, and it's a building block, as I thought it would be, to work with him over the next few years to make him a bigger and better star. Because he looks like Randy Orton so much, I believe they have that very much in their mind, and they want to work with that. And I don't see a problem with that. Um, and I also like the angle of what he said is also something I said previously, that his disabilities really shouldn't matter. His ability as a wrestler should matter. We should simply overlook that and just go with it's kayfabe. It's a production. Let's just go with that instead of focusing on what he doesn't have out of it as far as cutting a promo. Yeah, so let's move on to just a short segment of JCJ possibly being Stephanie Vakir's next competitor. Uh, the unfortunate truth is that we know surely she'll lose, but the fact that she's never been in that spot before is interesting. We'd love to see her in that spot because I think she deserves it. She's been in the company for quite some time, and she's always been a great worker in the company. So let's give her that opportunity. I think that's a very good idea. Let's see what comes of that. Let's talk about Trick Williams and Joe Hendry. Yeah, I didn't expect that ending. It was a great match. It was very interesting, well built. They told a great story. I said in my previous video to this that I thought there is no way that Trick Williams could win this title. I thought it was a little bit disrespectful to TNA to have him win this title. But there is another angle to look at it. If it's a short-lived title reign, that would be great too. I think Mike Santana is a wrestler that the WWE definitely want on their books at some point. So having Trick Williams drop that title to Mike Santana, a TNA wrestler at the moment, who is bridging the gap, would be interesting because he is the next number one contender to the TNA title. So in that respects, having a short-lived reign by Trick Williams does give him somewhere to go. I said in my last video, I don't see anywhere for him to go if he loses this match, which he surely will lose this match. He didn't lose the match. He picked up the title. So that being said, I actually think that does give him somewhere to go. I was mistaken. I did not foresee that angle. So, yeah, Trick Williams, the new TNA World Champion. Let's see where this goes. I think it will be a short-lived title reign. It has to be a short-lived title reign because he's not a TNA wrestler. And I believe TNA and the WWE value him far too much to let him go. But yeah, all in all, great PLE. Absolutely loved it. I was gripped. I was surprised. There was twists. There was turns. Yeah, absolutely brilliant. If you love the content, please hit like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. It lets you know when I'm uploading next and when. So until then, I have been your Triple Crown champ. I'll see you again.